Today on Rise Up. Next, we'll dive into community posts and missionary works from believers around the world shared on the Riser's official YouTube channel. The Riser unveils the sacred connection between the Mahdi and the black stone of the Kaaba. Shrouded in mystery, the stone has long held deep esoteric meaning. Its form, its location, and its legacy echo with divine purpose. And finally, we head to the comments section, where we engage with your thoughts and responses to our lecture series. This is Rise Up.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
Yes, welcome to another installment of Rise Up. I'm Irfan Alamgir.
And there's a lot on our minds this morning.
There is a lot on our minds, and I think the majority of it stems from a sense of frustration that there is the Caliph of God, there is the Mahdi, there is the return of Jesus Christ and the return of all the prophets and the messengers calling for the building of a divine just state where there is equality in law and justice and
wholesomeness and humanity.
And people seem to have a problem with that.
And also we're living in 2025 where there is freedom of choice and where people are allowed to live as they please as long as they are abiding by the law and as long as they are being humane towards one another. And a very strong principle that we hold in the Ahmadi religion of peace and light is actually the fact that we are very insistent that we be law-abiding citizens, and that is the case for all our members worldwide. We believe in structure, we believe in decorum, we believe in having order and discipline wherever we may go. So we insist on building a better world and making sure that everyone is taken care of wherever we may be. And I think that I really wish and hope for those who listen to us and those who are checking out our content and looking at what we do and who we are, that they would really realize that the basis of our religion is basically humanity first. And it's about making a better world. It's about creating a good society. And I guess a lot of people don't understand that. Perhaps people have these assumptions. Perhaps they're suspicious for various reasons. Recently, we had Professor Holly Folk come over, who's a professor and major advisor on religion and culture at a very prestigious university in America. And she actually
God
came
bless
over.
Holly Folks.
She really took the time to sit and study the religion and the community as well, which is, by the way, two separate things, isn't it? There's one thing which is what it is that we believe in, but the other thing is how is it that we practice that belief. And she was very pleasantly surprised at how well everything is organized and dealt with, and how wholesome it is and how humane it is. I wish people were more like her and able to really explore what it is that we're bringing forward and bringing on the table. Yeah,
she called the community as that ideal Aristotelian mean. That's the kind of things she referred to it. But because she said that, look, you have religious communities that are hyper-regimented. They have this kind of intensity where they are engaged in these activities from dawn till dusk, and then they burn out and fizzle out, and the community fragments and breaks down. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got this lackadaisical approach, this kind of floating.
She called it loosey-goosey.
Loosey-goosey, that's the term she used, yes. We can't be loosey-goosey because if you are like that, although you may prolong the inevitable, ultimately, because of that lack of focus and discipline, the core breaks down and it deteriorates and it fades away into the ether. She said this is that perfect balance between that intensity of focus on the mission at hand and at the same time the ability to relax and have those familial bonds and community bonds that are absolutely essential, and like you said, the bedrock of this community, which is humanity first, the principles of living in these family units and this integrated community where everybody shares in each other's blessings and in each other's troubles. And this is something that she highlighted in her interview with yourself and Hadil.
It's fascinating to me that the world is made in this way that if you make the human choice, if you exercise your freedom of choice and your ability to have rights, and you choose to be selfish or you choose to be greedy, then no one bats an eyelid. Everyone says, well, that's fine. They can live in a $3 million mansion somewhere in the Bahamas. That's absolutely okay. We don't mind that. That's okay. But as soon as you start to use your freedom of choice to be humane or to be selfless and to kind of connect with other human beings and say, hey, let's do this together, which is what we're doing, that's when the questions start. That's when the mockery or the verbal abuse begins, which is very fascinating and very interesting to me, because it is the right of a human adult to share what they have with other people. Voluntarily, free of any suspicion placed upon them. But we find that that's not the case. How many lectures has Abu Sadiq produced on the School of Divine Mysteries? It's an absolutely incredible playlist, and we find in the comment section that there are those who believe, of course, and they pledge their allegiance. Many people who are doing that worldwide. We'll also find that there are people who are super fascinated by what's happening, and they're so intrigued, and they are commenting saying, wow, what is this? What's happening here? But then you also find the detractors who, because they cannot answer what's happening, will comment on the beanie, or they'll comment on, I don't know, there's always something very silly that they bring up that they don't like. And it has nothing to do with what he's saying. I find it so strange that he's bringing up the most revolutionary ideals and principles, which are just cast aside. And I think it's dangerous, actually, on a societal level, because if you have a man standing up and saying, we do not tolerate racism, we will not accept that anyone be treated badly, we will not accept that anyone have their rights stripped away from them, and this individual is not given the support that he deserves, then what does that say about society as a whole?
Yeah, it seems like it's the deal breaker is that he's saying that I have been sent by God on the authority of the same authority as Jesus and the Prophet Muhammad and the great messengers that we revere in the scriptures of the Abrahamic faiths, and I've come here to build this divine just state where there is no exploitation of other human beings, where there is equality in terms of the way wealth is distributed. Not that 1% holds 99% of the wealth, but that everybody has a fair chance. And I want to create balance in the environment by not over polluting and by having clean methods of producing energy and so on and so forth. It's a holistic solution to the human problem on earth right now. But the deal really seems to break in the hearts and minds of the people when Abu Sadiq points out the obvious truth that is staring us in the face in the religious scripture, which states that God appointed Adam as a king on the earth.
Yes.
And I am the successor of Adam and all the prophets that came in between him. And my job and my authority is from God himself. And this really seems to irk a lot of people. And they have to ask the question, why do they feel such resistance to this idea? Where was that seed planted or programmed into their mind where they have this refusal to accept that there is a higher being from which all of us came, the source and origin, and he also is interested and cares about the well-being of his creation so that they may evolve to become ultimately like himself.
Exactly.
What a beautiful idea that is. But the mindset, unfortunately, Ali, I think of a lot of people is that they think that this is a method or means of control. And I think it's been very ingeniously, this idea has been planted into the minds of the people that obedience in any form to any authority is a sign of weakness and the ease with which you can be controlled and manipulated.
And that's really unfortunate because, again, that's an absolute illusion and delusion, because human beings they require hierarchy, they require a society that is structured in a way where there's order and discipline. In fact, isn't that exactly what
we are living in, that
civilization is built upon? Or are we going to go back to the survival of the fittest mode, the jungle era once again? And also, Dr. Irfan, I'm astounded by the number of times that you have mentioned on Rise Up when you do your Medicine of the Mahdi's segment, for example, or when you bring up the news headlines. I'm so surprised and astounded by the fact that many of the issues that we find in the world have stemmed from loneliness and stem from people being cast aside, isolation. And one of the most beautiful things that Abu Sadiq has done for those who believe in him is he has given them family, and he's given them family ties and amazing relationships with brothers and sisters, with aunts and uncles. We have such a beautiful, prosperous understanding of how to be humane and human, and to not be isolated and to not be lonely. And how many issues have we been able to tackle within ourselves and within each other due to the fact that we're connected in that way, and he is that glue that keeps us together, because without him we wouldn't know how to do it. In fact, isn't that why the world is breaking apart? Because people are so disconnected. And when you bring up these problems, and you always, I find it inevitable that you'll say it's because people are, and these are studies, these are people who have studied the problem and said, hey, it's because this person lives by themselves, or they retired and no one comes and visits them, so such and such happens to them. And it's so heartbreaking. But just the fact that an alternative is being created is it's so refreshing to see that. And I wish that people could see the beauty in that.
Yeah, and that's a key word that you use, the alternative.
Yes.
Which says what? That there's a system that exists that does the exact same thing but with negative consequences.
Yeah.
For example, the loneliness and isolation problem. Now, the people who have constructed this system, which is inherently unjust and evil, because the proof is in the pudding, you can see the statistics in front of your eyes in terms of wealth inequality, for example, or health inequality that we demonstrated through the various segments that we've done on the show. And this system has created, for example, the football thing, right? Football is really big in Europe, in the UK especially. There are hundreds of clubs and teams. Every week, that entire town, be it Crewe or Manchester or whatever, they have this football team, and they go there, and there's this communal bond. 100,000, 50,000 people sitting together once a week, cheering on their local team, paying an inordinate amount of money to be able to have this experience of community and bonding. But at the end of it, they are impoverished. And they never get that feeling of satisfaction, or they get it, but there is no growth spiritually. And, it creates this illusion that there is a bond. But the only people who walk away from it with anything are the footballers who earn hundreds of thousands of pounds a week.
And their managers.
Yes, and their wages are being paid for these people to get that communal experience.
Which is a human need and should not be something that you have to pay for. My goodness, people in the world are so unfortunate when they have to pay for their human need of connection to be fulfilled. It should not be that way at all. God created us as a species that are already a family. We're meant to be connected with each other. We have the right to have neighbors that love us. We have the right to have brothers and sisters that we can lean on when we need help. We have the right to have a support system that can help us if we have anxiety or depression, if we're lonely, if we're sad. Human beings are not meant to be alone. And if anything at all, then we as human adults have the right to live together as people that love each other, thanks to Abba Sadiq, who's given us that ability, who's provided us with that opportunity. And it's something that we're so proud of, and we're so honored to have and to have created, that it's something I don't think anyone would easily let go of in our community. And we're so proud of that. We honestly are.
Right, this is the vision of Abba Sadiq, this state where everybody has these communal bonds, they have this support structure behind them that takes care of their needs, and everybody gets sick, everybody falls into hard times, but they have the safety net of this community that will be there at all times for them. The being, this is why we say the being that created this current reality that we live in is malevolent, is evil, because you can see the extent of suffering that exists on planet Earth right now. And the architect of this system cannot be a holy or good intentioned creature or individual. This is why we're saying to get from the satanic building, we have to now demolish it and create a divine building that is built by the hands of the riser of the family of Muhammad, the prophets and the messengers who have returned in this day and age to support him. And this is the place where you, the common man, we as a common community, we can actually live in prosperity, can actually practice our faith and become better individuals and evolve spiritually and have technology that is beyond our imaginations in our hands, and really be the beneficiaries of this divine just state. The current system, as you said, it's completely broken, and it's not sustainable. And those in the know it's happening.
Yes.
The super ultra rich know that breakdown is coming, and they're, like we said in the last episode, they are building themselves these mansions in the mountains, trying to secure themselves.
I wonder why.
Because they know that impending destruction is around the corner.
You know, even if they don't want to believe that, if people out there are saying to themselves, oh, whatever, this isn't true, that's fine. But guess what? We believe it. You know, we believe that this is what we want to do. And I think that this is what's so fascinating to me. I've seen many different kinds of people. I've seen different religions. We've seen different communities. We've seen different cultures. But I haven't seen so far anything like what Abu Sadiq has built. And that's a fact. I've never seen something this unique, where we're not just concerned about our own welfare, we're concerned about humanity's welfare as a whole. We're not sitting down and believing in a concept or an ideology and then moving on with our lives. We're putting it into practice. We are exercising every resource possible, pouring every resource possible into the idea that we have to take care of other people.
Yeah.
And we're trying to protect freedoms. We're trying to protect rights, not just of ourselves, but of other people as well. And we are firm believers in the fact that if anyone's rights are not protected, then no one's rights are protected. So as people who have freedom of choice in 2025 in the West, we're hopeful that our existence will allow others to exist as well, because everyone has the right to exist and to be established in what they believe in, so long as they are law-abiding and humane. It's very unfortunate when you look at the East, when you look at countries in the Middle East that claim to be Islamic, and they are doing everything possible. They have the most advanced systems and technologies when it comes to finding and persecuting and prosecuting members of our religion, members of the religion of the Qaim Abdullah Hashim Abu Sadiq, the Mahdi. And you'll find this happening in Morocco, you'll find it happening in Egypt, you'll find it happening in Algeria, and it's really despicable, the level that they will reach to harass, to torture, to try and break body and spirit of the individual who believes that the Mahdi has appeared. And it's sad because there's so much lacking in their systems and in their country that they need to build, but they don't do that. They're more worried about harassment. And it would be so strange to know that there are places, not just in the East, but even in the West, where those freedoms are under any form of attack or persecution. It would be a very odd thing to see that, and I think that bias and prejudice and racism and intolerance are dangerous things to have in society, and this is why we speak. This is why we have a voice. We are saying, let's get together on the ideals we believe in together and make a better world.
Yeah, without unity there can be no prosperity, there can be no change. And in order for this revolution in the hearts of the minds of the people needs to happen before it can happen on the ground.
Exactly.
People want to end their suffering. They need to have that desire and that realization that currently we live in suffering and we have to get out of it, and the only way out is to hold hands and to follow an individual who has been appointed by God.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. An individual who doesn't even insist that you believe in what he believes in. He just says, hey, can we believe that humanity comes before everything? Yeah. Revolutionary. Isn't that revolutionary? Isn't that beautiful?
It's a beautiful idea.
I guess we can go on to our community post segment now. We've got some, I think we have a video actually lined up with some content put together of various Ansar who have been going from different countries into their different lands. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not catching that. The MCR is giving us an announcement. All right, I think we can... Yeah, missionary works from Iraq. Let's go ahead and play that.
That's the segment we need. Yeah, so let's, what is this is Australia. So we're going from Iraq to Australia in the blink of an eye.
We like to do that on Rise Up, don't we?
This is the type of technology. Oh, there we go.
Andorra. Okay, so this is one of the believers. So I don't know if our audio is audible for the audience, but they put this video together with this background music, which is very interesting. This is not a studio project.
So you can see
it's cats. I don't know if we can be heard.
It's a beautiful country.
It is a beautiful country.
Very scenic. Mountains and hills and clouds and sunshine. What more could you ask for? And now there's you could ask for more, and they're obliging us with these, with the declaration that the Mahdi has arrived.
There's a lot of stuff happening in Andorra, clearly. Quite a long video.
Wow.
So the believers in Andorra have been, look at that, just handing it to people in churches. Can you imagine you're sitting in a church feeling miserable and someone gives you a picture of the Qaim and says, look into this. So fascinating.
It's mountains.
Okay. Right, I'm not sure how much of our voices were audible, but we were doing commentary.
We were enjoying the music and the scenes of Andorra, which is a country situated between, I just looked it up, by the way. It's between France and Spain.
I also admire your geography.
Sitting in the Pyrenees Mountains. Hence the rolling hills, the beauty.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
It does look amazing.
Very small country as well. It's like 100,000 or something.
We should go there sometime.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what are we doing?
With that music, with that same soundtrack, yes.
We have to look it up and use it. We have Ansar, we have believers around the world who are very dedicated, who are going around and spreading the call and expressing themselves. They do it from their own volition. They want the world to know about what it is that we're doing here and why it's so important. And again, we really implore everyone listening to us and watching this to look into what we're doing, look into what we believe in and how we're doing it. Why is it that we have academics praising our work and encouraging us to do more? Why is it that we have so many different entities out there like Amnesty International, like the United Nations, mentioning us and saying that this is a persecuted religious minority that needs to be protected? What is happening around the world in terms of fundamentalist regimes and so-called Islamic republics that are harassing and raiding and persecuting our members? And why is that a problem? How is it that attacking us as members of this religion essentially means attacking tolerance itself, attacking humanity itself? We really hope that you'll go into our works and check it out. We hope you'll look at Goal of the Wise. We hope you'll look at the School of Divine Mysteries with the Riser Abdullah Hashim Abu Sadiq. And you can find the entire series on the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel. And if you're still wondering who we are and you still want to really talk to someone on the ground, find us on our website on the outreach page. Go ahead and you'll just find it there on the menu. It's really easy. You can also send us an email and we will be very happy to talk to you.
Yes.
Now, we have an episode of Abu Sadiq coming up.
Amazing. That
we wanted to discuss. Let's go ahead and play the first segment of that and we'll be right back.
So today we want to talk about a very important parable in the Bible and the New Testament. A parable that was mentioned on the tongue of Jesus Christ. That's the parable of the tenant. This parable of Jesus, alayhi salam, peace be upon him, was also pointed out and used by Imam Ahmed al-Hasan, alayhi salam, in one of his speeches. And basically in the speech of Imam Ahmed al-Hasan, alayhi salam, he was pleading with the people to wake up. He was saying to them to wake up, O sleepers, wake up, O dead ones. And then he said to them, do you know the example or the parable of me and those non-working scholars, the condition of me and those non-working scholars on the tongue of Jesus, the son of Mary? And so here Imam Ahmed al-Hasan alayhi salam was obviously stating that Jesus had spoken about Imam Ahmed al-Hasan alayhi salam from before. Either that or, as we know, because some people might argue and they might say, no, this is not what it meant. Actually, it was referring to somebody else. That also doesn't matter because as we've mentioned before in some of the episodes, that every verse in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran, these are living verses. And there is in every day and age a Pharaoh. Every day and age there's a Pontius Pilate. In every day and age there's a Jesus, and there's a Simon Peter, and there's a Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In every day and age there's a Zayd, and there's an Adam, and there's an Iblis, and there's the angels that prostrate to Adam. And so they change, the application of these stories change from age to age and from time to time. And we saw that in the brilliant example, that was speaking about the meaning of the Bani Israel and how the Israelites in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Israel and the sons of Israel, or the children of Israel, was referring to Muhammad and the family of Muhammad and their Shia alayhim salam. Just as in the time of the church, the early church, and the dawn of Christianity, the Christians understood as well that the promise that was given to Israel had changed, and that there was a new Israel, and the new Israel was the people that had accepted Jesus Christ.
Yes, exactly.
So Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, he says, do you know my condition and the condition of the non-working scholars on the tongue of Jesus? And then he mentions this parable, which is the parable of the tenant. And he says that there was this vineyard. There was this vineyard that was owned by an individual. And he had on there workers that were working. He had basically allowed these individuals to come and live on the property for a while and to work, and they owed him the fruits of it. And he had sent to these people that were working on the farmland or on the vineyard, he'd sent to them several servants over the course of time in order that they may collect the rent that was due.
Yes.
Jesus says every time the owner of the vineyard would send to them a servant, they would beat the servant, they would expel the servant, they would kill the servant. And so the owner sent many servants, and each time they did not succeed in convincing these people that were working on the farm or the vineyard to give the proper dues to the owner. And so one day, the vineyard owner decides that he's going to send forward his son. And he decides to send forward his son lest they remember and lest they become fearful and lest they change their past and pay their dues that are due to the owner of the vineyard. And so that was the end of the quote from Imam Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam. He quotes the parable up to that point. And then he identifies the characters of that parable up until that point. And he basically states that as for the owner of the vineyard, that is Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam.
Okay.
And as for the workers that were working on the vineyard, the evil ones, those are the non-working scholars.
Yes. The Pharisees and
the Pharisees, But in the time of Imam Ahmad al-Hassan salam, those are the scholars of the Najaf of the Hawza.
Exactly.
Exactly. As far as the servants that were sent to collect the dues, those were the working scholars over time. Those were the scholars that called to righteousness, that truly called towards the correct religion, the supremacy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those are the ones that were killed and banished and exiled by the non-working scholars.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
The non-working scholars wanted to keep the vineyard. What's the vineyard? What's the field? What's the farm? It's an allegory for the religious saha, or the religious arena. Basically the pulpit of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The non-working scholars have laid claim to it, and they wouldn't allow any righteous scholar to speak up, and guide the people towards Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, just as it was in the time of Jesus, where the Pharisees and the evil rabbis, they also had taken over the religious arena. They were the ones that were speaking in the name of Judaism. They were the ones that were refusing that the Messiah be sent forward and speak. And they're the ones that were responsible for the deaths of other righteous scholars or other righteous prophets, the likes of John the Baptist and Zechariah.
Yeah.
And then Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam says And as for the son who was sent to the vineyard, that is me. I'm the one who is screaming in you, awaken, O sleepers, awaken, O dead ones.
Okay, the son of Imam Mahdi.
Exactly.
Okay, it makes sense. Up until this point, it really makes perfect sense. I see that this situation that Jesus was speaking about that was taking place in his time actually repeated itself in the time of Imam Mahdi, and each character corresponds exactly to one of these characters in the parable. And finally, Imam Mahdi, he sends forward his son, Ahmad al-Hassan, to speak to the people. And yeah, it makes perfect sense up until this point. But he stops there.
He stops there.
Parable of the wicked tenants. Very famous, very interesting parable that was given by Jesus in the Synoptic Gospels. It's a story about misappropriation of that which is entrusted to people who are expected to use that which they are given to help the community. And I think the tenants who occupied and did not deliver on their promise to represent the non-working scholars is a perfect kind of a metaphor for them, because if the owner is God or the Prophet Muhammad, as Imam Ahmad al-Hassan says, and he sends prophets through time who are rejected, persecuted, beaten and murdered, then eventually the owner, the Imam Mahdi in this case, he sends his son Ahmad al-Hassan and he says, well, surely they'll listen to him. He is the heir of this. He is also the owner of this as an extension of himself. And with him, there is no doubt in the minds of those evil tenants, and they say, kill him, crucify him. And then, of course, you have this final thing in the Gospels where Jesus actually asks the listeners that he tells this allegory to, this parable to, he says, what do you think now will happen to these tenants? Yeah. And the companions, the disciples reply, they will meet a wretched end, as they should. And this was used by Imam Ahmad al-Hassan in one of his sermons, just as it applied in the time of Jesus when the Pharisees were the tenants. Now the evil, disbelieving Shia scholars in Najaf represent that same profile. So it's such an incredible parable, and it is so important, and it's playing out over and over again in history.
That's what's interesting, the pattern, right? That there's always the archetype of the shepherd or the non-working scholars that do come up, and they're meant to be the workers in the land. They're meant to be those who are helping people, and they insist on being that role in society too, and that's what's so strange. They insist on wearing the hat and the garb and sitting on the throne and, you know, holding that stick and saying, I'm going to be the one who leads people or teaches people. But then they don't do it. They do it for their own gain and their own benefit rather than for the benefit of other people. And they allow that other people suffer so that they can gain more.
Yeah.
And this is where treachery comes in, because they decided to take on a role that wasn't theirs. And they decide that when the true son comes in, which in this case, of course, was Imam Ahmad al-Hassan according to the sermon that he delivered, when this son comes in, what do they do to him? They treat him in the most deplorable way possible, because they don't want to give up their seat, a seat that never belonged to them in the first place. And again, it's a pattern. It's something that comes up over and over. If we go to the Bible and we see Jesus Christ saying it, and then we find Ahmad al-Hassan quoting it, and indeed it did turn out that way. If you're interested in knowing more of what happened, go ahead to our website. Our entire history is written there of what took place when he appeared in 1999 to the people in the House of Najaf, or in the school of Najaf, and see what it is that happened. It's very, very fascinating, and there's a reason that Abu Said brings it up in his lecture in this day and age as well.
And the real common denominator there is the recognition that they recognize that this is the son.
Yes.
And they actually conspire among themselves. So if you read the Gospels, it says that they're like, well, now the heir has come. What will we do with him?
Yeah.
And so there is a recognition that this is the true heir to this land, this vineyard that we've been given.
That's why it's so evil. It's not that they're like, oops, we didn't know this was the guy we were waiting for. They're fully aware. And it reminds me again of that narration where it said that when the Qaim goes to Kufa and the scholars will look at him and say, go back, O son of Fatima, we don't need you. because they know he's the son of Fatima. They're not in doubt, they're not in confusion. And a very telling mark for you would be the fact that the scholars of this day and age refuse to speak about the time of the family of Muhammad being Abdullah Hashim Abu Sadiq. They refuse to explain the will of Prophet Muhammad to their people. And we find that very strange and very telling. You'll find loads of influencers and YouTubers and TikTokers and all these people talking about the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, but you will not find reputable scholars really dissecting what's happening, who Abu Sadiq is, and what the will of the Prophet Muhammad is, and you won't find them explaining why it's wrong. They'll say it's wrong, they'll tell their followers, don't listen to them, don't watch it, don't go there, but they won't tell why.
Yes.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah. That's the evil of the non-working scholars, the evil tenants that have occupied that which is rightfully God's, and he can give to whom he wills and take away from whom he wills. But the good thing is that the ending, what ends well usually fares well, and the ending is a happy ending because they receive judgment and justice for their crimes of murdering, killing God's prophets and messengers, his servants who come in his name, and as well as the conspiracy to get together and murder his own son and heir to the property. So we have hope, we have great faith, and where Abu Sadiq goes with the rest of this talk is truly fascinating, because there is the mentioning of a cornerstone also by Jesus, which Abu Sadiq elucidates on, and again he connects the dots so beautifully.
I think it's also very fascinating to kind of point out here that Jesus Christ spoke in parables, didn't he?
He did,
and
indeed.
he said that. He said about himself, I speak in parables. And he said that he would send someone who would speak clearly to the people and who would explain these parables to them.
Yeah.
And if you go through the School of Divine Mysteries, you'll find something very interesting. You'll find that most of these lectures, Abu Sadiq mentions Jesus Christ, mentions his works, mentions his words, honors him, reveres him as the Messiah, and explains a lot of his, a lot of what he has said. And I think that that's not a coincidence. But without further ado, let's go on to the second segment and see what else Abu Sadiq says in the lecture.
But the parable itself continues in the Bible, as you know. It has a continuation, and I think that's what's interesting, is that Imam Ahmad al-Hasan, when he chose this particular parable, he chose to end at that particular point because that was the point where he was sent in.
Okay.
That was the point in the story that we had reached when he recorded that particular speech. It was the point where he was still trying to proclaim the truth to the non-working scholars.
Yes.
Okay, but Imam Ahmad al-Hasan, when he used that parable, it was almost like he was prophesying and telling people, prophesying what was going to happen afterwards.
Yes.
Because the parable itself, it continues and it states that the workers on the field, they end up killing the son, actually, that was sent to them.
Yeah.
And then it says that the owner of the field, do you know the rest of the story?
He gets angry and he comes and he takes it back himself.
Exactly. It says that the owner of the field becomes angered with the death of his son, and so he returns. And he kills all of the workers, the evil workers that are on the field. And he takes the plot of land and he allows another people to inherit it.
Yes, exactly.
And then he speaks of a cornerstone that was rejected by the builders, that now becomes in a place that nobody had expected it for it to be.
Yeah, exactly. He was referring to Old Testament, he was referring to the book of Psalms. He said, like, haven't you read the scriptures? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone.
Exactly. And anybody who falls upon it are shattered to pieces. And anyone who the stone falls upon is crushed, right?
Yeah.
And so the story, in short, when we go look at it now from the beginning until the end, what do we have? We have a vineyard. We have evil workers on the vineyard. We have warners being sent to those workers, other employees, colleagues like them that are there to warn them, to tell them, hey, look, this is not what the master told us to do. This land does not belong to you, it belongs to the master. They ended up beating, exiling, and killing all of those righteous workers The owner sends forward the son. The son too meets the same fate as those scholars. He is silenced, he is beaten, he is killed. And eventually, after the death of the son, that is the point where the trade or the switch happens.
The covenant switch.
The covenant switches. The workers that were on the field are eliminated. Judgment day comes upon them. They are killed. They get the same which they used to dish out to other people, and they are replaced. And the earth or the garden or the vineyard is inherited by a new people.
Yes.
And the new people that replace the old people are led by a stone. He's their cornerstone. He's somebody that they didn't expect would inherit the land, but he did inherit the land. Somebody that perhaps they looked down upon before, or they looked down upon the likes of such a stone before, but now this ugly stone that they looked on before, it became the cornerstone. And it's a very difficult cornerstone. It's a cornerstone that not many people can pass. It's an Aqaba. It's a barrier. It's a stone that if you stumble across it, you're going to get shattered. And if that stone becomes angry with you, it's going to crush you. It's not like the previous son that was sent before. In fact, he came to avenge for the previous son that was killed by the evil people that were on the field.
Yeah.
Now, the cornerstone is interesting because when we're looking now to see who is the cornerstone, we'll find that this concept of there being a cornerstone is very significant in the time in which the Bible was written, in the time of Jesus, in the time in which that parable was made, because there was indeed a cornerstone that was in the temple, right? And so what's the cornerstone? The cornerstone is a stone that is placed in the temple of God, right? Yeah. And the temple that exists in the time of the sending of Imam al-Mahdi and his son, Imam Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam, you find that they're upon the sixth covenant initially. And the sixth covenant is the covenant of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, is the covenant of the Kaaba. The Kaaba is the temple for the Muslims and for all of the worlds after it got switched to the direction of worship, got switched from Jerusalem and to Mecca. Okay. And then you have in that Kaaba, right? It's the house of God. What is the Kaaba? It's the house of God. And what do you have in the corner of the Kaaba? Because it has four corners. And then one of those corners in particular, you have this stone that is placed.
Yes.
And the stone is a black stone.
Yes.
And the stone is the direction, or it's what's actually meant for prostration. Everybody, when they're prostrating, they're actually prostrating towards that particular black stone that is placed in the Kaaba, in the corner of the Kaaba, hence making it a cornerstone. And the narrations have mentioned that this stone initially, when it came down from paradise, it was a white stone. It was a stone that existed in paradise, and it used to be a stone that Adam would come across in paradise, and he used to kick it with his feet all over the paradise, and then it became that stone that Adam eventually got expelled from paradise. And when he became expelled from paradise, God sent this stone down to the earth. And when Adam saw it, he cried, and he grabbed it and he lifted it over his head and he honored it, and it became the cornerstone in the first house of God on earth. Over time, the color of the stone, which was white, became black because of the sins of the servants. And so this stone was a kind of, it would suck and take upon itself the sins of the servants. And so when people would go and they would make Hajj to the Kaaba. One of the ideas behind the pilgrimage to the Kaaba is that the people would end up coming out of Hajj sinless because they would have laid their sins upon that stone that is in the Kaaba. So they fulfill their duty towards God, and the stone ransoms their sins by carrying it upon its own self.
Wow.
Another connection.
I wish we could listen to that clip again, because there is so much to take away from it. I wouldn't mind repeating that clip a couple of times, because there are so many fascinating insights and symbolism and that Abba Sadiq shares with the people. It really is fascinating. And when you read this particular parable in the Gospel, and I have it here in front of me, I wanted to read this out actually, because it is important. It says,
go ahead and read it.
So this is where Jesus asks the questions to his disciples in the Gospel of Matthew. He says, therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to these tenants? They respond, he will bring those wretches to a wretched end, and he will rent the vineyard to the other tenants, who will give him his share of the crop at harvest time. And then it says, Jesus said to them, have you never heard in the scriptures, and this is a reference to the Psalms, where Jesus now quotes the old scriptures, and he says, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is fascinating, how Jesus then throws this in at the end of the story.
Something about a cornerstone, and we don't really know what that means, and then we move on from it.
Yeah, and then he says, anyone who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces. Anyone on whom it falls will be crushed. When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard Jesus' parables, they knew he was talking about them. They looked for a way to arrest him, but they were afraid of the crowd because the people held that he was a prophet.
That's amazing.
It is.
That means that this cornerstone has a very, very strong impact on non-working scholars, really.
Yeah. It is that cornerstone, but it also is the capstone that creates that finishes the project, the job of building the divine just state. And it's fascinating that this allegory, this parable, is in reference to Jesus at that time, who comes, and also at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, and finally at this particular time.
The time of the Qaim.
Yes, and he is the cornerstone being referred to here, and was always the cornerstone. That angel that came in the form of the white stone that turned black because it takes upon itself the sins of the people. And it is willing to do that. That sacrificial stone that is a reference to the riser of the family of Muhammad.
The stone mentioned in the Garden of Eden, something that was accompanying Adam while he was in Eden. And the stone that Adam hadn't really honored as he should have. He didn't revere it as he was meant, so he didn't recognize the significance of this stone until later, when he is now on earth, and his companion is again this stone that he recognizes from the good old days. And he weeps and he mourns the way he had treated it, and he places it over his head in a sign of reverence and honoring it now, because now he understands what the significance is of that stone. And of course all of this is symbolic, but the fact that it takes on the sins of mankind to the extent that it turns black because of the amount that it's taking in. Very, very interesting. It's so interesting. Again, we have to reference this here. It is a concept we find in Abrahamic faiths, that prophets and messengers can take upon their shoulders the sins of their people. In fact, Christian theology is based on the very idea that Jesus died for their sins. So the idea that sins can be lifted off of a people onto the shoulders of a messenger is something that exists, and now Abba Sadiq is bringing that to the forefront and explaining how, in reference to the narrations of the black stone, that also makes some sense. And then he continues to explain, he expands on it as it goes on.
Yes, subhanAllah, I really enjoyed that particular clip, and I think we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, let's continue it.
Other narrations stated that the stone actually in paradise was an angel. and that the stone on the day of resurrection will be resurrected or the day of the Qiyam, it would be resurrected having 2 eyes and 2 ears and a mouth to speak to the people. And that, so we know now that the stone was an angel. It came down. The stone on the day of the Qiyam would be in human form, speaking to the people. We do know also from the narrations that the stone is a witness upon the people to see who it was that fulfilled their covenant with God. So we know that the stone is the angel of the covenant. He has an attachment to covenants. He watches people and testifies against them or for them in their favor. You know, on the day of judgment or on the day of the Qiyam, he's the one who separates, who is able to identify who kept their covenant and their oath with God and who didn't. Right? And that covenant and the oath is the covenant of obeying the Caliph of Allah, upholding the supremacy of Allah, not taking a false imam or a false guide or a false ruler or a false leader that was not appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at some point during the Hajj, a person is supposed to face that black stone and kind of give it a bay'ah. And so there's a pledge of allegiance that is required to the black stone. Imam Ahmad al-Hasan explains beautifully in the book of monotheism and in other sources how essentially this black stone, it was a symbol for the Yusuf of the family of Muhammad, Joseph of the family of Muhammad, or the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad, is the person whom was promised to come from the seed of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and he is the black stone, and he is the one whom Muhammad and the family of Muhammad have paved the way for. And Imam Ahmad al-Hasan explained how the verse of Surah Yusuf, where Joseph says basically, I saw 11 planets and the sun and the moon prostrating to me, that the application of this verse in the time of the Qa'im would basically be that the 11 planets and the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon are the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Ali alayhi salam, and the 11 planets are the 11 imams from Imam al-Hasan all the way down to Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, that all pave the way for the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad to come through. And so in the same way that the 12 tribes or the 12 brothers and Jacob and how their prostration in the dream, they also kind of they did the things that led to the enabling of Joseph in the land. The same thing happened with the 12 imams and with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that it was all leading up to that point, to the point where the black stone is enabled in order to take back the Garden of Eden or the vineyard in the parable, and that he would have the ability then to crush the enemies or the evil scholars of religion and restore the vineyard back to its rightful owners, and allowing all of those whom inherited the land to all those who believed in the supremacy of God to inherit the land.
Yes. Wow. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with all that you've just said. You gave so much important information, and it's really made me think about a lot of things. I mean, I think that Ahmed al-Hasan's words are very interesting. What he chose to mention in his sermons and in his books, it's all very telling, because like you mentioned in the parable, he left it at a certain point, but the parable continues, and what continues is what happened after him. As you said, Imam Mahdi and Ahmed al-Hasan, they paved the way, and they led these events to happen up until the point where the parable continues, and that's the point of the story where the Qa'im comes in, the cornerstone comes in, and he takes it from there. And I think that you mentioning the history of the stone and the fact that there's always been this stone, it's not just a stone that the people are revering, but it's what the stone symbolizes. So that stone that existed in the temple in the time of Jesus and the stone that existed in the Sixth Covenant in the Kaaba, that wasn't just a stone. It symbolized something very important. It symbolized an angel. It symbolized a person. It symbolized a person who was to come. It was like a foreshadowing for the person who was to come and who was to right all of these wrongs and to take back religion from these non-working scholars and to be that stone that corrects all wrongs. And I think that it's just so incredible that all of these things actually make sense when you put all of these pieces together. And I mean, my mind is really blown. My mind is absolutely blown. And I think that the case is very clear that Ahmed al-Hassan, he said very clearly in his writings over 20 years ago exactly who the Qaim was, who the black stone was, and he said that it is Joseph from the family of Muhammad.
It is Joseph of the family of Muhammad, and if we look at the dawah of Imam Ahmed al-Hassan and the events that took place, we'll find that they match the parable exactly. Imam Ahmed al-Hassan, after Imam al-Mahdi had sent forward many righteous scholars and messengers from him over time to warn the evil non-working scholars in the Hawza, each and every one of them were killed, and the Hawza became more and more corrupt. Eventually, Imam al-Mahdi sent his son forward. His son went forward. He tried to warn the people. He established his dawah in 1999. As you know, he released several speeches. He wrote some books. And he attempted to call the people towards the supremacy of God. They betrayed him and they totally killed his da'wah, and they took it over and they pushed Imam Ahmed al-Hassan out of the way, as they did with all of the previous scholars that had come forward to them. And Imam Ahmed al-Hassan's da'wah was taken over by a false calf, by the office of the Najaf, by these evil scholars and the government of Iraq that sought to control the people. And ever since then, Imam Ahmed al-Hassan has not been seen publicly with them at all. In fact, they've only had like a false imposter with them to this point, and there's been no images of him, no videos that have emerged from over there, no public settings or gatherings or speeches or anything that has emerged from the office.
Now again, the cornerstone is being referred to here, and that cornerstone, or as we know it in Islam, the black stone.
Hajr al-Aswad.
Hajr al-Aswad,
yes.
which is so significant.
It's so significant.
I mean, those who do Hajj, they're meant to go there to the Kaaba.
Yes.
They're meant to approach that stone and
Yes.
pledge allegiance to it.
Absolutely. Before you can circumambulate the Kaaba 7 times, whether it's for Hajj or Umrah, the minor Hajj as some Muslims call it, you have to come in, and when your eyes lay upon the Kaaba, you have to immediately look for where this black stone is, and you raise your right hand towards it, they tell you. This is within Sunni and Shia Islam. And then you recite the Shahada. You are bearing testimony. You are pledging allegiance to God through this stone. It is that condition without which the pledge is not complete. It is that Adam that we must prostrate to before we can receive that divine light that we need to perfect our imperfect natures, you see.
Exactly.
And it is something that is, like you said, the centerpiece of Hajj. It is the beginning of Hajj. So what the black stone represents is the pledge of allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And that is only done through this particular individual.
And it's so fascinating because we know that the narrations state that every day and age has an imam of the time. And this stone is meant to be a symbol that carries a spirit to which we are pledging our allegiance. We are not pledging our allegiance to a stone. And any Muslim who denies that essentially is denying the fact that we believe in monotheism, because we are not pagans, we're not idol worshippers, we're not people who worship sticks and stones, but we worship the spirit. And this spirit that is meant to be residing in that stone symbolically and is absolutely residing in the Imam of the time is the one that we're meant to go to, support, pledge our allegiance to, say labbaik to, which is what you do at Hajj. And this is the whole entire point of Hajj. It's to understand that, look, you're meant to do an effort, crawl over ice, find that spirit in this day and age, wherever it may be. And today it's in the rise of Abdullah Hashim Abu Sadiq, the cornerstone, mentioned as well by Jesus Christ.
Indeed.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful narrative, and the way everything is brought together by Abu Sadiq using the Gospels where Jesus mentions the parable and taking it all the way to the black stone that is the focal point of the Hajj of the Muslims, and then saying that the stone has manifested in the form of a man called the riser of the family of Muhammad, to whom the Imams, Prophet Muhammad and Imam Ali alayhi salam, peace be upon them all, make that prostration, is the Yusuf also of the family of Muhammad.
Exactly.
In the Quran of Prophet Joseph.
Wow, that is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's incredible. The parallels are uncanny, and I think we have a couple more segments left. Let's double check to make sure. We have one last left. Should we let our viewers watch this final segment?
Yes.
And bid them farewell. Enjoy the last segment of the episode.
Plenty of food for thought.
Yes, please contemplate over it. Write in the comment section what it is that you think of what you've seen today. Ask us any questions that you might have, and reach out if you want to talk to us. We would love to talk to you.
Typology at its very finest.
Yeah, typology on a whole other level. Like, we're going from typology in Christianity to an Abrahamic faith typology. We're going through all the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt as well, and absolutely amazing. Only Abu Salih can do something like that. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow morning for another episode. And until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
But Imam Ahmad al-Hasan had left them already with a warning of what's to come and a prophecy of what's to come, and he told them what's going to be coming, and that is the black stone, and that is his son, his successor, his heir, and that is me, the Qa'im from the family of Muhammad, the one who has been enabled and sent forward now to restore the rights of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. I'm that stone that is very difficult for people to pass by. Anybody who trips over me will be crushed into pieces, and anybody who stands in my way, I will crush them totally if I fall upon them. And it is an obligation for all of mankind to hear and to obey and to submit to my call, because my call is the call of the supremacy of God, and I stand here enforced by all of the angels and by God Almighty above, and all of the prophets and the messengers that had came before me. They all paved the way for this particular moment, and this is a moment of great importance where there's going to be wars and there's going to be deaths, and a lot of mankind is going to lose its life because all of the chaos and corruption that it has spread. And Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam is with me, and Imam Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salam is with me, and all of the prophets and the messengers, they have returned and they are with me, and I have come to reclaim back the vineyard.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And now the importance of the Qa'im in terms of the religion and the pillars of Islam, it also becomes clear, because like prayer is like submission, the act of prostration towards that qibla, that direction of worship, which is the black stone. Now, knowing this information, it puts that into a whole new context. You know, prayer is submission to that stone, which is the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad.
Absolutely.
And Hajj is migration to the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad. And
Absolutely.
now we understand like what this religion actually is. It's not just worship of things or concepts that are foreign. It is actually the Qa'im who's standing in front of us. It is giving ourselves to you. It is submitting to you. It is serving you, and it is enabling you to be that stone that rectifies all of these wrongs. And now I feel like I actually understand the religion that I've been following. Like it has become clear to me.
We are the house of God. Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salam, he's the Yamani corner of the Kaaba. Noah alayhi salam is the Shami corner of the Kaaba. Adam alayhi salam is the Iraqi corner of the Kaaba. Moses alayhi salam is the western corner of the Kaaba. And I am the black stone, and we are the house of God. And the pillars of Islam is nothing more than to, one, make the Shahada, testify that you believe that God is one, believe in the prophethood of Muhammad, declare belief in Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Imams that came from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi, and believe in the Mahdis, whom are us, and this is our day and age. age now, and we are present. It is prayer, as you mentioned, and the prayer is nothing more than the reenactment of submission and prostration to the black stone, the Caliph of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this day and age, the Adam. And so the people will fall inevitably into one of two groups, either the group of the angels that prostrate to Adam of the time or the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad, or they will be of those who reject, like Iblis, and they will be banished from the land and banished like those non-working scholars that had taken over the vineyard, unrightfully so. The religion is the act of zakat, giving money to the poor now. And the poor are Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. And the poor are the Shia of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the only ones that were brave enough to stand in a world that was filled with so much corruption and with countries that are appointing their false leaders and their false kings and worshiping false scholars of religion. They usurped the rights of the poor, and now it's time to perform the true zakat and to give back the rights to those poor people that were oppressed in the land. The true religion is fasting, and fasting is to abstain from engaging in and enjoying the state of the devil, the state of Iblis, to abstain from supporting this horrible system that is getting ready to collapse and to fall, to abstain from eating from the fruits that are handed to you by those non-working scholars, to fast from eating from the vineyard that has been stolen from its rightful owner. We have to fast from that. And last and most important of all is that we have to make a pilgrimage now. We have to make a pilgrimage to the house of God. We have to make a pilgrimage to the black stone. We have to shake the black stone's hand. We have to prostrate to the black stone and to the house of God and help the black stone establish control over the vineyard. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining me, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Father.